We'll do the Mamer Ze Hayom Techilas Masecha Zikaron L'Yom Rishon, which the Rebbe said on Yom Beis the Rosh Hashanah, the second day of Rosh Hashanah in the year Tavshin Mem Aleph, and then later on, as it says in the note, they published it uh, on in the booklet in the Rosh Hashanah in Tavshin Mem Ches. And that was in honor of Rosh Hashanah, which was but the date on the publication was Tuesday, the third day of Slichas in the year Tafshin Mem Zayin for the upcoming Rosh Hashanah in Tafshin Mem Ches. We'll learn the Maimir inside. V'siyaita d'shmaya Yom Beis the Rosh Hashanah hey Tafshin Mem Aleph. So Ze Hayom Techilas Masecha Zikoron L'Yom Rishon. He quotes from the Musaf davening. We say Ze Hayom, this day. This is talking about Rosh Hashanah when we're davening. Is Techilas Masecha. This is the opening and the beginning of Hashem's action. Everything started with Rosh Hashanah. And this is Zikoron L'Yom Rishon, a remembrance for the first day when it all began. As we'll see in the Mamer, the connection to the Yom Rishon when the world was created on the 25th of Elul, but this is called on Rosh Hashanah when the Adam, the human being, was created, is considered to be the Zeh HaYom Tchilas Masecha, the beginning of the Maaseh. The Rebbe is going to first touch the idea of Zeh. Zeh means this, versus sometimes we say koi. Such Zeh is a direct. That means that you can actually see it. And the Rebbe is going to touch that Zeh Gilui, revelation is Hayom, is Yom goes on Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, everything comes begilui. That's why begilui we see all the inyanim of Techilas Masecha, the creation that happened in the Yom Rishon, is Zeh, it's Begilui, Zeh is as if it's Begilui Hayom on this day. The Rebbe teaches Biyadua, and it's known, the Hayom Stam Koi al Rosh Hashanah. When you say the day, Zeh Hayom, this, which day are we talking about? So Yom Stam is goes on Rosh Hashanah. That's why we also say when we say Atem Nitzovim Hayoim Kulchem. So we say over there is brought down the Torah from the Zohar that Atem Nitzov Hayoim. Hayoim is Yoima Didina Rabba. When it says the day, it's talking about Rosh Hashanah. Pirush Zeh Hayoim. So what is the meaning Zeh Hayoim? Rosh Hashanah is Zeh. The Rosh Hashanah nimsheches b'chinaseh, that the day on the day of Rosh Hashanah, the level of Zeh, the level of C, revelation is extended, comes down on that day. Rosh Hashanah. What happens at Rosh Hashanah? Machtirim b'nei Yisrael es HaKadosh Baruch Hu lemelech. That's when we crown, the Jewish people crown HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be king. Upoyalim, and then we impact the oisim, and we bring about Gilui Malchusa Yisborech B'chol Ha'olam, the revelation of His blessed kingdom in all of the world. So we make Hashem, we crown Hashem as the king, and that influences and that impacts to make that the Eibishter Shetake become his blessed Malchus should be in all the worlds. And when we sing in all the world, it goes ad asher v'yeda kol pol ke'ato pa'alto, to the extent that everything that was made, that was accomplished, will know ke'ato pa'alto, that you are the one that made him. So everything that has been brought about will be revealed, will recognize that it's the blessed Malchus which made him the pole. So the recognize ki ato pe'alti. Shagam bechinas pole. The word pole means akdan shebasiya. That goes on the world of asiya, which means in action. In the world of action, which there is pole, you have the nivra, you have the yitzira, you have the atzilus, netzal, nivra. But this is pole is asiya, action. Everything that was in asiya will also recognize ki ato pe'altoi, the gilu malchus is barach. Umekol shikein the yitzira, the bria, and it goes without saying that the all of the levels in Yitzira and Bria, which are higher than Asiya, will certainly recognize Yeda Ke'ato Pe'altoi, will know that you are the one that made them, that it's your impact you're doing. And V'zeu Zeh Hayom. And this is the meaning that we say Zeh Hayom. On this day it's revealed. Rosh Hashanah Nimshach Elikus Begilui Mamish, that on Rosh Hashanah godliness extends total mamish revealed. Ba'ad dezeh, it becomes not just revealed, but it becomes in the way of zeh, this. When we say zeh is kol echad, ve'echad made be'etzboi v'omer zeh, as we say that each and every one in Gemara Tainis, that each one will say, says zeh keli van vehu, which means that each and every one will be able to say Hashem this, to show, to point to Hashem, which means a tremendous revelation. So this is Zeh Hayom. Rosh Hashanah all happens this gilui of Zeh, to the extent of Zeh. So the Rebbe says, this also explains why we say about the day of Rosh Hashanah, Zehayom Techilas Masecha. We're saying this is the day of the beginning of the action. Now that we're explaining that Zeh means the Gilui, this will explain the other issue. Why do we talk about Rosh Hashanah as the day when Hashem everything started, when we know that Techilas Masecha was on Chafei El? Since we're explaining that Zeh means the Gilui, Take creation started on Chafei, but Zeh Hayom Techilas Masecha, the revelation that Rosh Hashanah brings about is Techilas Masecha is on Rosh Hashanah, is on Aleph Tishrei, not on Chafei. To explain, what is the issue with Zeh Hayom Techilas Masecha, which is now understood since we say that Zeh means revelation. The Yadua, the Yukbazeh, it's known, the question about this, the Kvod Kedushas Admur HaZoken from the Alter Rebbe, the Kvod Kedushas Admur HaEmtsoi, and the Mittler Rebbe, the Kvod Kedushas Admur HaTzamach Tzedek, and the Rebbe the Tzamach Tzedek, the Kvod Kedushas Admur Marash, and the Rebbe Marash, the Kvod Kedushas Admur Marashab, Nishmos Eden, and the Rebbe Rashab Nishmos Eden. And my father-in-law, the Rebbe, who is the leader of our generation, they're all asking the same question, and all of the Rebbe's Maimorim, they have their question, and the issue is, isn't it that on the 25th of Elul world was created? And Rosh Hashanah is the day that the first man was created, Od Morisha. That's already the 6 days of the actions of the beginning. That was on the 6th day. So the Rebbe's all asked the question, how do we say about it? Shehu Techilas Masecha, that this is the beginning of the action. When the action started on the 25th of Elul. So that's a question and the language. But then the question is actually why Taka is the creation pushed? Why is Rosh Hashanah pushed off to the creation of man? Why don't we make Rosh Hashanah and Taka and the Chof Hey on the 25th? V'gam Loma Rosh Hashanah hu be'echad b'Tishrei. Why is Rosh Hashanah on the first day of Tishrei v'loy b'Chof Hey be'Elul and not on the 25th day of Elul? Seems that should be. So the language to say, how come we say that this is Techilas Masecha, and why Taka don't we make on El Chafei El? Why don't we make Rosh Hashanah celebrate it on the 25th of El? Gam uh further, Sheberesh Hashanah, what happens to Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah is not only for Bnei Adam, not only for humans, because every creation, every creature, everything that has been created is also being judged on Rosh Hashanah. V'oid shebereish Hashanah kol boy olam yavrun lefanecha kivnei morin. All that come in this world, everything that is created in this world, pass by Hashem like bnei morin. Bnei Morin can have several taich, and the Pashta taich is Kibnei Morin. That's like sheep being counted by their shepherd, that he counts them one by one. So we all go by for the Eberster. So uh, that means to say, that it's not only the category of the speaking of the human being, Elagam hanivroim the sug hachai, also the creation of the category of the living, and also the sug hatzemeach or the sug hadoimem, all the category of the growing thing and the inanimate. It's all kol boye olam, everything that is in the world. So belama Rosh Hashanah b'yom broi ha'adam dafke. So why is Rosh Hashanah on the day that man was created? So the explanation is based on what we learned before. The tachlis hakavone bebriyas ha'olam hu. The ultimate intent of the creation of the world. Why did Hashem create the world? So that man, through his service, Yamshir Gilui Alakus Be'olam, should draw down the revelation of godliness into the world. Gilui, such a level of revelation, not just revelation, the purpose of everything in the world is for for a revelation on an extent of zeh, which is called echad ve'echad mare be'etzboi ve'emer zeh. As we said before, each one can point with their finger and say zeh. Be'inyan zeh nischadesh ve'naseh, and this idea of this revelation that everybody can say zeh has been renewed, or now it came about, and happens b'yem b'rei Adam. That happens in the time that the person was created. So therefore, that ends up being the goal of creation on Rosh Hashanah. The Bria Sa'olam b'Chavhei ba'Elul, the creation of the world on the 25th of Elul, as the word Chavhei, Hoisa b'Bchinas Koi, was in level of Koi. As we say elsewhere, that all the prophets, they say Koi Omar Hashem, so says Hashem. That's not revelation, that's not Gilui. Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, he in the Snabit, it's with the Lashon of Zeh. This is it, meaning the Gilui. So Chav Hey is Koi. Ubiyim B'Rayot Marishain. But on the day that man was created, through his service, this chadish v'nase gilu elokus, that renewed and that brought about the revelation of godliness in the level of zeh. And that is why that is the day of really the beginning of creation, because that's the goal of creation, is Adam Harishon, to bring about through his avodah, to bring about this zeh. And this is really something which expand to all creatures, to all the sugim, and that's why it's all connected, that on Rosh Hashanah is the day in which the goal at that day was because of that. Because of that, the world was created, so that's why it's called Za Yom Techilas Masecha. Base. Obiyur inyan ha'ilui. Shenischadesh v'naseh b'yom brei Adam Harishon, to explain the idea. What is the advantage that has been came apart, the novelty that happened on the day that Adam Harishon was created? Yuvan behagdim milas darga sa'ilam, will understand it by first introducing the advantage and the level of the world. We have to explain first the level of the world as it was created on the first day, which is B'chov Hei Be'elu. And when we understand that, we'll also be able to appreciate what was accomplished on Rosh Hashanah when man was created. So first, we need to understand the B'chov Hei Be'elu. Also, the world at that time was on a very high level. So from this, we'll also understand the great advantage that came about and happened to the world when Adam Rishon was created, how this became the greatness of Rosh Hashanah, that man was created. After, we'll appreciate the level of the world in creation itself. And the Rebbe says, because to really appreciate Rosh Hashanah, we need to know what's the Maila of creation of the world. That's why the Maimorim address this of Rosh Hashanah also about creation of the world. It would seem like it's not the appropriate place for the Maimorim to explain when we're trying to discuss Rosh Hashanah about Chafei Elul. The Rebbe says the reason is because that explanation on Chafei Elul, on the beginning of creation, is what gives us an explanation, understanding the mile of Rosh Hashanah. So we can say that this is the reason. Shabekam avakam adrushi Rabbi Seinu Nisienu the Rosh Hashanah. There are many and many Maimorim of our Rebbes, our leaders, that were said on Rosh Hashanah. Shemavuer bahem hatam alzeh sheberesh sheresh Hashanah hu ba'alev b'Tishri, in which they give the reason why Rosh Hashanah is on the first day of Tishrei. Muvuer is bahem hamayla the chavhei be'elul. Also, when those Maimorim is explained the advantage of the 25th of Elul, because ki al yidei habir b'mailus chavhei be'elul, because through the explanation in the advantage and the greatness of the 25th of Elul, move on Yoiser Goidel Ha'ilu the Rosh Hashanah, we can understand better the great advantage of Rosh Hashanah. So we need to first see the Maila of the 25th of Elul, and then we can really appreciate the greatness of Rosh Hashanah. So now we're going to explain the advantage of Chav Hei Elul, the beginning of creation. Behold, the first day, the Maaseh Bereishis Chav Hei Elul, Nivru Hashamayim v'Oretz v'Chol Tzva Ma'ayin Liyash. The heavens and the earth and all the armies and everything in it were created from nothingness. from ex nihilo into existence, Kimeshakosuv, like the Pasuk says, Bereshis, Bora Lekimas Hashemayim Ve'esaoretz. In the beginning, Hashem created, brought about into being the heavens and the earth. And when we say the heavens and the earth, we're really including everything else that goes with Sheshamayim Ve'oretz, V'chol Tzvaeim, that the heavens and the earth and all their armies, because it says Bereshis Bara Lekim, not Hashemayim, but Es Hashemayim, Ve'es Oretz, Es Hashemayim, L'Rabbis Tuldi Sayem, Ve'es Oretz, L'Rabbis Tuldi. So that when it says Es Hashemayim, Ve'es Oretz, the Es is coming to include everything that is in the Shemayim and everything that is on the Oretz, that they too were brought into being in the beginning. Nivru me'ayin liyesh, they were created from ex nihilo into existence, from nothing into existence. And even though we read in the Chumash certain things were created on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, the next days of creation. So, but the fact is, everything was created on the first day, and then later on it was revealed on the following days. The Gam Hanivroim, Shenizhavu Bayomim Demaise Breishis, Shelachrei Hayom Rishon, also those creations that came into being on the days of the act of creation that followed the first day. Hari Az Hoiso His Galu Shalahem. That point, the revelation at those days that followed, that was the revelation. Yitzira V'asiya, forming them and making them, shaping them, giving them their specific shape and form, and making them, but the bringing them in from ex nihilo to existence, me'ayin, liyesh, that all happened for everything on the first day. Abu briyoso me'ayin liyesh hoyso b'yom harishon. They're bringing their creation from nothingness into existence. That took place on the first day. Begam ha'odom. And also man, the person. Shamai lederesh Hashanah hi kinal shebiyem zen nivrodom. That this is the actual advantage of Rosh Hashanah, that man was created on him on the sixth day. And still, Hariksiv Bey Vayitzer Hashem Elikim Es Ha'odom Afar Min Ha'adama. It says Hashem formed the person sand from the earth. So the human was created from the earth. And when was the earth created? Which is the creation of man, va'afar min ha'adama, and the sand of the earth, shemimenu neitzer gufa adam, from which the human body was created. Nishabe b'yom harishon, that was created in the first day. So essentially, the ingredient to create the body of the human being, that came about on Yom Rishon, on Chafei Elu. Ubim specifically Apia Yedua, based on the known Sha'kosuv Bereshis Goimer, Medavus, the Posveresh Medaber Bis Havus, Hashemayim Voris, Hagashmim, Vigam Bis Havus Atzilus, also the creation of Atzilus. So we aren't just talking about the physical world coming in to Yesh Me'ayin on the first day of creation, on Chafei, but we're also talking about the spiritual world. We're also created, their beginning was on Rosh Hashanah. That the Bereshis is Chochmah. Bereshis is the level of Chochmah. The Bereshis of Hatzilus, and the beginning of the Ishtalshlus of Chochmah. And then we say Elikim is Bino, Es Hashemayim is Zo Zeir Ampin Bes Oretz Malchus. Those are the spheres within Atzilus was created on Chav Hey Elul, not only the physical world, but also the Shtalshlus world, the world of Atzilus. Because then Nisave B'Yom Harishoin, and all this was created on the first day. So this tells us that everything starts on day one on Chafei Elul. The human being, the physical human being, but also the world of Atzilus, everything started on the 25th of Elul. So we can imagine how important and great of a day is. And further, the Pasuk said, "V'gam isa b'medrash ala Pasuk." Also, we find in the Medrash on the verse, uh, "Gam isa b'medrash ala Pasuk." We also find in the Medrash on the verse, "Vayi'er vayi'bay k'yem echad." The Pasuk says the first day it was erev and morning, it was evening and morning, yom echad. Why does it say Yom Echad, not Yom Rishon, like it says Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, Yom Echad, one Yom Echad instead of the first day? Why does it say Yom Echad? The Masha Kosu Yom Echad. Why does it say Yom Echad? Below Yom Rishon, not the first day, but the day one, the day of one. Hu lefi shaboy hoyu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yechidi Be'ilomei. That was because on that day the Eibishter was alone in his world. V'hainu, so that means that the Hayishavus, the Yom Harishin Hoysa, that the creation of the first day was in a way ba'oifun shahoya oz nira v'nigla shahu yizbarich echad ba'ilamai. At that time, it was seen and revealed, it was visible that He blessed is one in the world. And this idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yichidi Be'ilame was the one only in His world, Hoya Oz Mitzad Lemailo, that was because of above, Umitzad, and also from the perspective of Kamoish Nimshach Lamata, and it came down below. So by the Eibishter, it was all one, and also it came down below. It was all one. Only Hashem was in the world then. That was the revelation. Mamer shenemar bayim harishin hoyo. And what was the saying that of the 10 Maimor? What was the Mamer on the first day? Hoyo vayomer elikim yihi, that the Eibishter said, the Elikim said there should be light. Sha'al yoda yuchlu b'nei Yisrael al yidei avidosom, that through this light that the Eibishter created on Yom Rishon, the Yidden, through their service, they should be able to bring light. Shal yoda yuchlu b'nei Yisrael al yidei avidosom lahoyres ha'olam kuloi, to illuminate the entire world, and to reveal the inner of the world. That the infinite light, which was before creation and the restriction to create the world, till the essence of Mahus, this was all created in the Yom Rishon, the Oir, to bring about light into the world. So to bring the Giluyim from the highest of the levels, from the Inner Sof all the way to Atzmos. Shaboilam, K'moy shu mitzad Atzmei, Gam K'moy shenivra b'yem harishin hu b'elam. The world on its own, without the Eibishter saying Yi Oir should be a Gilui, the world on its own, even at the level of Yom Rishon, on the highest level, that's still obscure, hidden. You don't see that level. So this is all on the Yom Rishon. So besides all the creation of the world itself and the milas of that, that it was a Yom Echad, it was a revelation, and then you have on top of that, Vayemer Elokim Yoir, that was the first day to bring Giluyim into the world, even in the mile of Yom Rishon, to bring higher. Yesh Loimar, and there was it you can say, the Zesh Amr Azal, Oir Shenivra V'Yom Rishon Lo Yehoya Ha'olam Kidai Lishtamish B'Oy, that the light that was created on the first day, the world was not worthy to use it. And Hashem separated it for himself. So, why? This is, as the Rebbe says, that light is higher than the Shtalshalus, up to La'atzmus. Especially when you consider what is explained in many places, Hapirush, what does it mean? That he separated for himself, meaning that it's way beyond the Atzma, as explained in the other places. So, B'kitzer, in talking about what the greatness of Yom Rishon, we explained over here the various different aspects that everything was created on Yom Rishon, everything, whatever's going to come later on. And at that point, also, Atzilus was created. And further, it was a time when there was Begilu Yom Echad, the presence of Hashem. And this was also both from the perspective from above and also below. We all were able to sense that the Yom Echad, the Eibishter, is only in this world. That was on the Yom Rishon of Maaseh Bereshis. And further, what was the saying of Maaseh Bereshis? Yi'or. Yi'or represents the greatest level of Giluyim. So this all points to the greatness of what creation, the day of creation, Chav Hei El, the greatness of that. And that is all, once we consider that, we'll say that the greatest of all this revelation is to prepare us of what happened on Yom Rishon when the human being was created, what he added on top of all of these advantages that are already there inherently. Gimel. In addition to all the advantages of above that took place on the first day of creation, of the act of creation in the Maaseh Bereshis, it's known that during all of the 6 days of the beginning, the Maaseh Bereshis, also on the 6th day of creation, before of the sin of the tree of knowledge. So before on Yom Shishi, it changed, but before the change that took place because of the sin, all days of creation, world in general, it was at the level of Gan Eden. So the Gan Eden, when we talk about the Garden of Eden, even by today's level, when the world descended after the sin, but still the level of Gan Eden, that's a very great level, a great step. And still, the way it was that. So here we have all these great manners, and still, through the creation of man on Rosh Hashanah, They added a greatness to the world. Va'ad, to the extent that the creation of man brings elevation of the world, it brings elevation even in Gan Eden. Shaydei Avedus Adam Harishon, through the service of Adam Harishon, Nitoisef Ilu Gam Began Eden, it added an advantage also in Gan Eden. Kemoshoya Oz at the level that it was that, because that's where Hashem put man in the Gan Eden law of the Lashabra. So that means that man was supposed to add to the level of Gan Eden as Gan Eden was Lifnei Achet. K'meshe Kosuv, Vayanecheyu beGan Eden la'avdu goymer, that the Eibishter placed the Adam in Gan Eden to work goymer. Lahamshich Eirin so beGan Eden, to bring down the infinite light in Gan Eden. So why was it Taka necessary? This was the accomplishment, but why was it necessary to add to the Gan Eden when the world seems to be created by Hashem on a perfect level? Dagam sha'olam al mindu lu'ei nivra. Even though the world was created complete, full, like the Pasuk says, Eile toldos hashamayim va'aretz. These are the generation, the creations of the heavens and the earth. The word toldos is written with two vavs, toldos. Bibarim, when they created, toldos mole. That represents that the world was created in a way that it was complete. As the pasuk specific language is Eile toldos mole gomer bihi baram. When they were created. So that means it's not that they were just toldos mole, but that's the way they were created. The aim is to create that they should be mole. Also, when they sages say us, they say Olam al Melui Nivra. It was created, meaning from creation they get that wholesomeness. It wasn't added later on. So the world itself is Olam al Melui Nivra. Vashlemus, the Olam. Vashlemus, the Olam. Commercial mitzad abriya milmaila. So this shlemus, the way it comes from above, creation is limited. That's why we need the person to bring down because notwithstanding the Olam HaMelui Nivra and all of the greatness, it's still measured and limited. It came down a light which is beyond the measured and limitation of the world. Eila toldes peretz. Over here we say the generation of peretz in Rus, when it talks about Mashiach and the Rus and how Mashiach, the descendant. So over there also says the word toldes mole, meaning by Peretz, the Avodas on Shapoitzim, this represents the Avodah of Yidden, that it's Mol Shapoitzim, it's Peretz, that notwithstanding the mole that it has, this is a full Toldos as well, but it's a Toldos that is Peretz that breaks through Kol Amdidas Vagbolos the Olam, all measures and all limitation of the world, Gam Medidas Vagbolos, the oilam kameshoy b'yemarish the also the measure and limitation of the world, as it was in the first day of Ma'aseh Bereshis, in which Hashem was only in His world together with the world. And we said before, the greatest milas, and yet the man was put in Gan Eden, loved the L'Shamra, Eila Toilis Peres to break through that limitation. So this all tells us the significance of the avodah of the human being of Adam Arisha. That's why Rosh Hashanah is on the day that the first man was created. Because the idea of Rosh Hashanah is to bring down the level of Zeh, revelation, Kinal B'Pirish Zeh Hayom. As earlier said in the explanation, Zeh Hayom. Hayom reveals his revelation is Zeh. Hainu, Amshochas Vigilui Atzmus Eidin Sof, Shalamayla Megeder Shaychus Loyalmes. That's drawing down and revealing the essence of the Ein Sof, which is higher than the find and connection to the world. Bezeh Hayoim Techilas Masecha. Zeh Hayoim is Techilas Masecha. This revelation on Rosh Hashanah is nimshach in Masecha. Shagilu de b'china zeh nimshach gam b'Masecha. This in what the Eibishter did. In Masecha, what the Eibishter did. The Eibishter did, we said, didn't have yet this level of bligvul. It was medita v'agbola. But Zahayoim brings it into Masecha, into the Hashem's action. That also in the world on its own, which is in the level of koi, should have the level of zeh. Ba'ad shagam b'chinas pol shebe'asiyah, even the level of pol within asiyah. Yeda ke'ato pe'alte. Get out. So everything within asiyah should know that pe'alte. V'lochein Rosh Hashanah hu b'yoyim b'roi Adam Harishon Davke. That's why it's Davke and Yoyim b'roi Adam Harishon. Ikoyach zeh, for this power, la'amshich gilui atzmus in sof shalamayla me'olamus. Because this power to bring down, to reveal the atzmus in sof, which is higher than the world, v'sham shocha zuti ba'olam, and that Shocha should be in the world, will be Yisrael Davke. That's Davke by Yidden. Atem kriyim Odom Hashem Odom Harishon. We are called Odom in the name of Odom Harishon, which took place by Odom Harishon. So on the Broi Odom Harishon, that is when the Yidden have this power to bring it down. That's why that is when Rosh Hashanah is celebrated. And that gives us an understanding that notwithstanding already the great milas of Chafei Elul, but ultimately that's all a limited revelation. The Kilui of Atzmus Ein Sof, that comes on Rosh Hashanah, on the day that Adam Harishon was created, and that is associated specifically to the Yidden, which Atem Kriyim Odom. Odom is specifically relates to the Bnei Yisrael.